parliament. And these are all documented cases they're bringing up of hardcore satanic torture. Buildings full of little girls in dog cages, mass rape, murder, chopping their bodies up and feeding them to people at kebab shops, all confirmed. Hundreds of thousands of girls raped that we know of, thousands murdered, the government and police protecting them, the Muslims providing slave brothels of children as young as 5 years old, up to about the average age of 12. Almost all the major orphanages running child sex slavery dungeons with the Muslims. Any good police officers that would expose it would be fired or murdered. It's all coming out. And Keir Starmer was the head magistrate over the CPS, Child Protective Services, for 15 years. Before that, he was the deputy magistrate and protected the industrial level mass murder, Satanism, pedophile cult. The same stuff you see in the Epstein files.
So you're watching this exposure, this worldwide exposure that's connected over to satanic, dark, nefarious operations. You know, as much as people don't want to talk about aliens, you know, that it could be connected to demonic spirits, because it's a confusing topic to the average person. When you talk about UFOs, UAPs, and then you hear a lot of people say that, you know, that demons, you know, these spirits, dark spirits, they don't need these kind of machines. They don't need this at all. You know, they can travel interdimensions, you know, possess the body, do different things, and they don't need spacecrafts. They don't need this at all. So it's a confusing topic to the average human. And military government assessments, they all know this, you know, through their operations. They know that it's going to be kind of a wild ride for people to kind of understand a lot of things. So in this moment, to where people are kind of confused about different things, this disclosure is connected to aliens. This disclosure is connected to the adrenal operations. It's connected to exposing Moloch. It's connected to the trafficking. It's connected to all the different rituals. It's connected to creating wars. It's connected to controlling society through elections, through all of these fraud operations around the world, full corruption connected to the military, intelligence agencies, different government sectors. So it's kind of confusing for people to really understand what disclosure is really about. It's just not about aliens and contact. You know, those are operations that's a little further ahead of time, because all of this is all going to collide together. So I'll try to explain as much as I can about all of this, because I told you that behind the scenes, Moloch, these satanic operations, this is a huge discussion behind the scenes that military, intelligent agencies are dropping the bombs and reading in, giving the real information, proof to certain leaders inside of Europe, Spain, different places, especially inside of the UK. So this is what's happening behind the scenes, as people know that there are satanic rituals. This is a huge, gigantic topic. Now with the Epstein stuff, everything that you heard about, you know, Bush in there torturing children. So much stuff came out of Epstein that kind of shocked people, and people are waiting for the next batch to come out. A lot of stuff to still move forward on the Epstein stuff. But to let you kind of know what's really happening is that right now, inside of the UK, the past 2 weeks on and off, there was private tribunals happening. Those tribunals are connected over to this, all this dark stuff connected to the elites, connected to satanic operations, connected to the military. Now, at the same time, in the public sector, what they're showing, you know, inside of the UK Parliament, you're seeing the soft tribunals actually happening. The soft tribunals is bringing this exposure to the world. This connects to really some of the darkest stuff. I'll almost say 90% of this stuff I can't say on Patreon, but I can give you an insight, and I'll share just a little bit of videos. But this is what they're talking about. I remind you, this is from the UK Parliament talking about all of this dark stuff that came back. There's a lot of talk on this because we're talking about Keir Starmer trying to bury the story, cabinet members trying to bury the story, police trying to bury the story, investigations trying to bury the story, the royals trying to bury the story. Everybody's trying to bury the story of the trafficking. Much deeper than that, bringing in immigrants from across the world, the Middle East, Pakistan, different countries, and creating all of these different operations that's really dark and sadistic. Those operations include, the assault on young children, the assault on women, and even much darker than that is to where, they're killing people and they're putting the bodies, the food inside of meat, and much darker than that, a lot of different, just horrible stuff, the reports that's coming out. So, it's hard to touch on this because it's mind-blowing. The more you hear about it, you're talking about dogs, assaulting young kids, the survivors directly talking about this, and how this was all pushed forward, the exposure of this. It came from the people, over 250,000 UK people, petitioning to bring out the story, this true story, the evidence, the whistleblowers, the victims to come forth. So now inside of Parliament, the PM people are finally making everybody aware that there was a huge cover-up from the police involved in some of these things. Some of the victims being arrested instead of the perpetrators, massive cover-up. And this connects to, it's just huge, you guys. It's, you'll find all the reports. You can go to YouTube, you can look at a few things, but they try to cut it up. YouTube tries to put it underneath different stuff. It's really hard for people to find the full testimonies, what's really been going on for 2 weeks. They only show you the certain clips, and YouTube's trying to hide all of this information. Nobody's really reporting on this, but what needs to be really reported on this really dark operations. Behind the scenes, first of all, I have to tell you, behind the scenes of these gangs, how they were brought into the UK, all of this operations connected to the disappearance of thousands of people, all of these operations connected to the adrenal operations, what's happening to the women, what's happening to the kids, what's happening to the men, and then the satanic rituals of feeding that food over to humans, and then who's all involved behind all of these operations connected to the 33rd degree Masons inside of the UK. It's connected to the royal families, connected to intelligence, and it connects all the way back to Jimmy Savile. This is what they're talking about inside of the real tribunals. So you got tribunals inside of the United States that's already happening behind the scenes. People directly from Gitmo, reporting that there are tribunals behind the scenes. There are people being arrested behind the scenes. Now you're hearing about China, open reports even in China that there are tribunals happening behind the scenes. People have been arrested the past year, the attempted assassination of Z. There's a lot of tribunals, Trump going over there to testify in those tribunals, taking all the executives for certain reasons. They're not only talking about a new financial system with China, which China, the provinces are talking about. They got assurance from Musk. They got assurance from BlackRock. They got assurance from Trump. I have to remind you, all these operations are captured, everyone that Trump traveled with. So it's not only about a new financial system, what Trump went there to talk about, tribunals. Now those tribunals, it's kicked off over in the UK from the reports that I'm getting for the past 3 weeks. So everything's kind of working together. You have these secret tribunals that's exposing the real stuff, inside the secret tribunals. When we're talking about secret tribunals, that means that's going into the military records, it's going into the royal records, it's going into the UK Parliament records, the government records, it's going into their archives. Now, on the public side, the soft exposure, the soft tribunals where the Parliament is showing this, filming this, because this is all going to move forward, and it's going to keep on moving forward. Moving forward means that there's a massive shakeup inside of the UK, all the way to the Prime Minister, all the way to the royal family, to the intelligence agencies, everybody involved in this cover-up. Everything that they thought disappeared, all the data, the victims, the testimony, everything is going to be reinvestigated. It's going to be reopened up. And then it's going to connect to the next batches of the Epstein files. It's going to connect over to more exposure and more leaks that's going to come out from the military, connected over to a lot of survivors' testimony, and then people from intelligence agencies inside of the UK. Now, I told you that this event was going to unfold. I kept saying, look at UK, things are going to keep on unfolding. It's just the beginning. So now we're at this moment to where it's really kicking off. It's starting, and it's really amazing to see that they're actually bringing this forward inside the UK Parliament, bringing this exposure out. And it's very interesting. So this is just the opening doors. But I remind you, behind the scenes, the military operations have already been captured. The deep state operations have already been captured. Everything that you're seeing now is just kind of disclosure. That means giving you the information, letting you understand slowly of how this is all connected, from the trafficking to what they're doing with the dead bodies, putting it in meat, all of these different rituals, all of these different gangs connected to the local, to the local mafias, then connected over to the intelligence agencies, connected to the police department. Massive cover-up, but also involvement, and also facilitating these operations on purpose through the UK banking system, the House of London. This is all to bring down the House of London, these operations. They're bringing these operations forward in a certain way that it looks like it came from the people. I kept telling you, it has to look like it came from the people. The petitions, even in the United States, what Nick Shirley is doing, what a lot of people are doing from the underground networks, the podcasters, moving that information over to the bigger podcasts, to Alex Jones, to Candace, to all of these different places where it makes a huge impact. It gets people angry, people rising, and then going to their leaders to expose, creating petitions, creating a movement to bring out all of this information. Because at the highest levels, the big leaders, certain leaders can't just use this information to create warfare, because there'll be, people will go against them. That's why Trump cannot bring out the real operations of Israel. He can't say it, and I've said this many times. It has to be given to the people, and has to be connected to almost a new party, a new group that's exposing all of the Israeli corruption stuff, the Epstein stuff, everything. So the same thing's happening in the UK. A new party, different groups are all exposing all of this information connected to this huge, gigantic web that is growing the exposure. So to put everything more into perspective, you're watching storm operations taking shape directly. It's not happening, inside of, say, it's not happening in a smaller country directly right now. It's happening right in the House of London. Right, how can I say it? The lion's mouth. Huge operations, 33rd degree Masons, these operations, the Jesuits, the Rothschilds banking systems, the World Banks connected to Hong Kong. It's right there happening, right in London, the exposure. So at the same time, that there's protests inside of London happening over the weekend. People were attacking the police because, the police were They were on this young kid, arresting him, handcuffing him, and he had 5 stab wounds, and he was stabbed by a person from India. And this event happened last year, at the end of last year, 2025. But the footage just now came out. This person has already been prosecuted, already been sentenced. This person that's from India or Indian descent. And he's already been prosecuted. He's already been sentenced. But the footage dropped, and people are absolutely upset of how the police handcuffed this young kid. And he's saying, I can't breathe. And, so what I'm trying to say is there's a massive movement at the House of London to ensure the fall of the cabal. These operations are happening. But I mind you, behind the scenes, there are tribunals. This is all a control collapse, a takedown, an exposure. And beyond exposure, you're watching disclosure happen. Disclosure, like I said, it's just not about UAPs. It's just not about aliens. It's a powerful deep dive for people all around the world to see that there are different forces that exist. These different forces that exist was controlling large part of the world to create wars, the trafficking, all of this stuff connected to the weapons trade, connected to the drug trade, the trafficking stuff, and then to secret rituals, elites around the world, all connected to globalist operations. So that's what disclosure is really about, and you guys are beginning to understand it. So don't get lost to try to separate things that, okay, there's aliens, intelligence, and then there's demons. Everybody's trying to use this against each other. People are confused. They are the same forces together. The demons can turn into aliens. All of this stuff that's creating massive confusion. The basic thing that you should really understand is that there are forces that exist connected to demons, aliens, spirits, ancient civilizations, intelligence, all kinds of different forces. And those different forces that exist on Earth, that's what disclosure is about. And that disclosure is connected to bringing out the story of the darker secrets of humanity. That's connected to, like I said, elites, to rituals, connected to satanic operations, to worshipping Moloch, to trafficking, to the adrenal stuff. This is what you're watching. This is what's kicking off. This is going to move into the United States as people are talking about Moloch. People are talking about the demonic operations. People are talking about hybrids. People talking about all of this stuff. But what's really important is that Senate, Congress, behind the scenes, they're getting obsessed that, okay, if this thing is demonic, okay, that means we need to dig into this and we need to see how it's connected over to leaders inside of the government who's practicing inside of these demonic rituals. Can you see the idea of why this is important? It's really important to understand that this is all disclosure. It's all connected, these operations. So you're watching these important stages being exposed. So this is what's happening right now inside of UK. Soft tribunals inside of Parliament, everything being put on record into the archives, into the royal records, into the military records, intelligent records, because by the time military operations in the United States kick off of the election fraud, the election coup, treason operations, 11.3 operations come out, everything heading towards that way, towards military intervention. Trump already ensuring that. Everything's moving that way because right now, so much stuff is happening behind the scenes inside the United States with Trump. Trump waiting, on executive orders to sign to move forward. But I mind you, Trump has signed over 140 secret executive orders that have already put the United States underneath the continuity of military operations control. Inside of Europe, there's continuity of military operations already running. Inside of Canada, there's continuity of military operations already happening. A lot of people flipping, even at the higher level, saying that we can unite with America. We can make America great again. So many things are happening, and it's just mind-boggling. So to talk on all of this stuff, it's absolutely confusing to the public sector, and I try to give you a lot of clarity because everything that I told you was going to happen, it's really happening. And the information I share, it's just not me. It comes from very reliable sources that's been telling you a long time about many of these operations to take shape, to happen, and what's going on. So you guys should really be happy that this is absolutely happening, because as the exposure of the election, which is going to be one of the biggest pandemics in the world, that's going to show the cover-up of countries' investigations, how they covered up the pandemic, the virus, the creation, how they covered up the whole financial money laundering operations throughout their countries, and how those same people were also protecting, covering up all the investigations into the trafficking, the satanic rituals. This is absolutely, absolutely true of what's going to happen. So as Trump exposes the elections, 72 countries around the world also are going to feel the vibrations, and then they're going to want to expose all the different corruption. So this is where we're at. UK, boom, talking about it inside the parliament. And it's really, really dark testimonies that's been going on for a while. So you can research that. You can find a lot of the different videos. And very, very interesting stuff. So at the same time, you have like Jesse Waters, mainstream media, directly talking about hybrids, giving that insight to the normal people that this information is really out. Everybody talking about this. It's a subject that's growing. It's something that keeps on. It's a subject that just keeps on moving. So behind the scenes, you have the White House communications with behind them is the military battalions that's moving operations. Now they're reaching out to scientists throughout the United States, and they're having them read in on a lot of stuff connected to the real UFOs, connected to real aliens. And the scientists now, you have a lot of people, even like Dr. Weinstein, Neil deGrasse Tyson, people who denied aliens, denied UFOs, UAPs. Now they're saying they're real, they exist. A lot of scientists are being read in on this. Just a month ago, you had United States military, Pentagon, working with the U.S. government, giving information and collecting together people from around the United States, spiritual leaders, whether it's from the Catholic systems, different denominations of the churches. They brought in all of these leaders and gave them certain disclosure. And then that's where everybody was talking about reptilians, hybrids, and they were saying that something's coming and you need to prepare this, for the people that's underneath you. So that story hit really big because everybody's getting ready. Inside of DC, certain grocery stores were being emptied out where the elites are. People scared that some event is coming this year. Panic. So disclosure, it's coming. Now, United States military communication operations with the White House is moving operations, the informations, over to very powerful scientists throughout the United States and then around the world. So this is all happening of how they're moving all of this operation to let everybody know that this is all coming, you guys, prepare. So there's some figures that have been released to say that 17% of people believe that in 2025 or in 2026, in a few months will be this closure. Then around 28% say that this will happen by 2026. And then I believe like 40% of other people say this is going to happen by 2028. What I do know is that the original operations was for 2032 to 2033. I've mentioned this a long time ago, since 2019, to say real contact is in this time. But the exposure disclosure operations begins during the Russian war. And then I began to move information of everything that's happening now, everything. But now here's the scoop. Here's the cables that's coming down the lines, is that these operations from 2032, 2033, the contact operations, they want to move this up quickly by a few years. That's all I'm getting the real information on, is they want to make this even faster, even more possible, these operations. And it's very, very interesting. Very interesting. I did a video for gold members having to do with certain things of really interesting stuff having to do with God, what's happening behind the scenes with kind of string theory a little bit. I talked to a real a high level scientist, that's all I can really say, that's been to some of these places that you're talking about. People are talking about over inside of Florida. So anyways, to talk on that subject, it's very, very interesting what's happening, what the military absolutely knows, and that has to do with time travel. How God went into the future, created everything quickly, and then came back. And on his way back, God fixing everything inside the timelines. Then people get to experience stuff going forward. And this happens back and forth, and it's connected to different things that the military is kind of in control of, certain technology that is capturing new particles, and these new particles are quivering, quantum movements. And it's talking about the same way God created the whole universe. It's just a huge, gigantic subject. And then eventually I'll tell you guys what's going on with Tulsi Gabbard, the real intel. It's kind of shocking a little bit. It's going to make everybody kind of happy. And I'll share that news on Friday with you guys. Very interesting stuff. That's all I can say, is that Tulsi Gabbard's far from being over. It's very interesting. It's connected to later disclosure. Very, very, very interesting stuff. So anyways, and just to get into the center of this conversation, let me talk about myself a little bit in a good way, is to say thank you very much for everybody that donated, that supported us, sending donations. I absolutely appreciate that. Me, Johnny, we were very busy the past few days. It was so much work going to banks, going inside the city, getting all my files, everything ready. I had to move a lot of different information, insurance companies, then transferring funds. And then I had to go yesterday over to sign contracts to get this garden house that Johnny has a place to be, to lay outside, and we get to be in a nice, peaceful place. It's something that it's really special, because it's an opportunity, like I said, that comes just once in a while for a person inside of where we're at, inside of the country, is that people have a chance to own the land, a house for a full lifetime, pass that on to their kids if they want to. And you get to own a garden. You get to own a house that's already there. Electricity, water, everything is there. And it's very, very cheap. Instead of saying $250,000, $500,000, like that, $500,000, we get to get a small little place that is usually between $7,000 up to $15,000. Euros, they're almost close to the same. So we got to get this house. We had an offer that was made. We took the offer, and I was really fortunate because it came through Pepper, through Johnny, through people that they see in the forest with other dogs. And this lady was really in charge of these houses, giving them out. So instead of waiting on a waiting list, God blessed us, and we're really fortunate. So I want to say thank you. I was really super busy, super, super busy. And I just want to say that thank you to everyone who donated. Thank you to everyone who sent blessings that we could get this. We appreciate everything. And I'll be sending thank you messages to everyone, in the different places that we got funding. And I'll do a short video on that. So let me get back to the news, a little bit of what's happening. But this is major to keep talking about UK, the exposure, because The prime minister, different cabinet members, connect all the way up to Keir Starmer. He was the person that was behind the scenes. He was the one that was facilitating all of these operations of the CPS, Child Protective Services, all the operations, what's happening to the children, the investigations, if there's abuse. He was the person and facilitating all of these operations for 15 years. And he's the one that covered up for all of these different gangs, these operations of these gangs, because I can't say that word behind it, but it rhymes with grapes. We'll just say that. So these grapes, these gangs, there was a huge cover-up, police involved, so much abuse that's absolutely awful, and Keir Starmer covered up a lot of this stuff. This is all moving to this day, exposure. And, the House of London is falling apart. Intelligence agencies are in massive panic that I've been telling you about behind the scenes. So that's just to go back to that, to give you a little bit of information, how that's moving towards Keir Starmer. So just a few things from the news that we can kind of talk about is Peter Thiel, is escaping, and he's going down towards South America, underground bunkers. This is really interesting from a lot of reports, different wires coming in from major sources, because when I'm saying major, this is a lot of people is moving this information now. You have behind the scenes something really complicated. Again, this is all complicated because it's something that nobody really expected for everyone to be talking about. We're talking about aliens, reptilians, hybrids. We're talking about all of this really weird stuff. Then we're talking about different humans who are aliens, who are hybrids, who are clones. All of this technology that was also hidden, that the deep state, they were hiding a lot of advanced super technology from the world, this powerful technology to pull off the Project Bluebeam, control humans, different technology, frequencies that can control thoughts, or even get you sick, or even to make you die, or to make you hallucinate, to change your spiritual frequencies. All of these different forms of technologies, to UAP, to healing technologies, different things. This is a strange drop of wires that I'm seeing at a lot of places. And it's very interesting to say that, okay, all of this stuff was suppressed, okay? All the stuff underground bases suppressed, all of these things suppressed. But wires are coming forward to say that somewhere in between 1977, 1984, some event happened to where all of these different operations around the world, there was an infiltration, and it began to capture these operations. So we're not talking about the underground wars, the underground tunnels exploding, capturing these operations that's been taking place since 2014, 2016, 17 underground earthquakes. But there was an event that happened inside of 1977 towards 1984. And inside of that time, a lot of these major operations were captured. Nord Grumman, all the way to Boeing, all the way to Raytheon. Some kind of operation was suppressing that. The black hats, the cabal, couldn't use the operations that they created. The technology that they created, other viruses that they had in the background, all of these different technologies to sound frequencies, they couldn't use it at a full extent. So what these wires are indicating is that the reason why a lot of technology didn't come out for a while is because connected to well, I can't say that. I'll just say connected to intelligence, aliens working with humans. They were suppressing the information, blocking the deep state from using their technology and blocking this from coming on out. They weren't blocking it to hide the information from humans. They were blocking it so the deep state around the world couldn't use it. Whether it was from Obama all the way to Brennan, intelligence agencies, all the way to the deep state around the world, people, very important people inside of Switzerland to the Vatican, all around the world, people weren't allowed to activate these different operations that they wanted to pull off much, much earlier. And I'll end up taking a look into these wires. People are kind of reporting on this. And I'll take a look at some sources to see that information. I want to give you guys that information because that report is out there in different places. You know, you might not have the exact timeline, but very important people are telling you everything was being suppressed, not to hide from the good humans, but it was to hide, it was being suppressed because they didn't want the deep state around the world to use these different technology, different advanced operations to take down humanity, to control them. So I thought I would put that out there because that's really kind of mysterious what's happening. I've seen that in some really, really strange places, that information. So I'll end up getting into that. Now you have a thing that even General Flynn was talking about. It has to do with Colonel Douglas McGregor saying that Russia needs to capture Odessa and cut off all the lines and end the war. So this is what I've been talking about. When you have major people bringing this information in, Flynn talking about this, you have Colonel Douglas McGregor. What they're doing is kind of transmitting moves. They're kind of letting you know what's going to happen, that Russia has to do this, that America agrees with this, that this needs to happen. So they're kind of telegraphing what's going to happen. But I kind of gave you the information already that this is what's happening. There's huge, massive movement that was going to go towards Ukraine, Kyiv in the area. Russian forces surrounding certain areas that's not being reported. And then also all the way down towards Odessa. Military operations of the Russian military is already ensuring a takeover in that region. Now, I finally saw that maybe about a week and a half ago, I told you that there were boots on the ground of the United States military, certain special forces from Europe, working with United States, and they were already in Ukraine. And I told you somewhere towards this region in southwest Ukraine, I told you that military operations were destroying a line from this area and it went towards Odessa over in this region. Now there's some earthquakes that are confirmed that happened a few days ago in the same area, the same locations that I've been telling you that the military is taking down these lines. As you know, that Tulsi Gabbard had given information that there's a lot of bases inside of Ukraine. She was the first one to really go public, especially directly being part of the military and then also being a leader inside of the United States. And she was the first person to really give the information that there's underground bases inside of Ukraine. These underground bases is connected over to the manufacturing of bioweapons, different technology. Well, she didn't say technology, mainly bioweapons, but there is the different places where they're messing with a lot of things connected over to technology also. So that's what's happening that you're seeing. There's a line that's being destroyed in this region that goes all the way down towards Odessa. Now there's earthquakes. Now Russia is talking about taking over this regions over in Odessa. Colonel McGregor talking about this. This needs to happen. General Flynn talking about all of this stuff, that this needs to happen. Information coming out from different reports. United States military are already running operations inside of Ukraine with special forces. This is very important information that they're still taking out very important places. Some of these places that's connected to very advanced technology, connected to reverse engineering of certain things inside of these deep underground bases. You have to think about it, and this idea is like, man, it must be really scary. It must be really interesting and a real, almost in a way to where you have to put yourself in that idea that, okay, we're going to go take down this base today. It's going to take us a few days. We have to go underground, deep underground, a few miles. We have to go underground. And this base is highly protected by certain frequencies that military bombs can't destroy this. We have to get there directly. But when we get there, we're going to have backup with different technology that we have the United States. And these soldiers, these super soldiers, they could have an alien with them. They could have hybrids. They could have clones. And they could be carrying different technology that they need to make contact with the space with directly, because it's too far for certain weapons, certain bombs to reach, and they have to go deep underground. So you have to think about this in this form, that there's a lot of patriots around the world, white hats, military operations, super soldiers, behind the scenes working to ensure to bring down all of these different bases. Lot of exposure that's happening, because now these underground bases are being captured. Now finally we can talk about what was in some of these underground bases. What were the nefarious stuff that was happening there? All this is moving forward. We're at this point that people would never thought that we would get to, talking about Ojerno, talking about Satanic, So you can kind of see it. Putin, the first world leader of a major country, that owns one of the largest countries in the world, how huge it is. And you have this leader coming forward to say, Western society is controlled by satanic operations, really dark forces connected to really, really dark stuff of demonic energy, Satanism. Putin talking about this the past 2 years, giving several speeches on this front. Now people are learning about it. All this is coming out, this information. So we always pray for people who are doing stuff behind the scenes, that's really there directly. And what's more fascinating about all of this is, okay, we're hearing about disclosure. You're hearing about hybrids, aliens, a lot of them disguised as humans, then the technology that will eventually come out that some of these aliens, they were using certain technology that they could put on, but some of these alien spirits, they could transform themselves, They had different kind of built-in systems that they could kind of transmit, that's connected over to shape-shifting. So when we talk about stuff like that, you have to see that United States military for a long time working with aliens, working with different intelligence from different dimensions or different galaxies. So inside the military, you've heard it before, different places, that the United States military is working since the late 1930s, 1940s. They have contracts with federations of aliens. They have not contracts only, but also that behind the scenes, they have been working with aliens to create technology. So what I'm saying is, like, you have to imagine that there are good aliens, whether it's hybrids, clones, different angels that can shapeshift, that is working with the United States military to ensure, to ensure that the world does move forward into the Great Awakening. That does ensure a time of the golden age that is coming, to ensure that, that the world isn't just a place for sacrificial rituals connected to depopulation events, poisoning humans through foods, creating wars, forever wars. that there is a powerful plan to save the world, something that we've been talking about for a long time. With all of these events happening, I think most of you can see this picture through this closure, the topic of happening, why Satanism, why even though you might not agree with it, that leaders are saying that these aliens could be demons, why that topic needs to come out, because that'll show that we have to investigate this, who's part of this, what leaders, what corporations, what entities, what intelligent agencies around the world are part of this dark statistic satanic operations. That discussion has to take place. It needs to happen, that these congressmen, senators, world leaders, that they have this inside their idea, because they're going to push for the exposure of this. As more exposure of the trafficking, the killing, the movement of children, is all going to come out. This discussion absolutely needs to happen. So this is where we're at, you guys. And so we have a new film that's coming out, like I was showing, that Accidental Truth. Very interesting. Then we have the film that's coming out also, Disclosure Day, that's coming out in a few days. Then we're expected for Trump to make a huge move next month. And I think that's going to be really interesting, what's going to come out for July. But we don't want to say anything on that front, because I don't want to give somebody to give dates, say this is going to happen exactly in July, and then Trump doesn't come out with that disclosure. So as we come closer to the end of the month, I'll see if that event is really going to happen. So now new images, comes out from the war, and there's more confusion because of these bases that were bombed, that Iran bombed throughout the Middle East. New satellite images came out, and people are confused over this because the bases are empty. But not only are these U.S. bases empty, the certain technology is right out in the open, and these technologies are destroyed, obliterated, and everybody's looking at this saying, we don't understand what this is doing there, what this technology is. Some of them are still kind of half destroyed. There's pictures, images, but military assessment, different regions, everybody is saying, what is this? What is this? This has nothing to do with this area. This is strange, this technology. And it has to do with some kind of super advanced technology that they're trying to figure out what was blowing up, what was destroyed on these military bases. Why was there a lot of people evacuated from these bases already before the strikes, that there was no one there? So there's confusion over some of this. And this thing that people are talking about, right? This is something I was telling you about already. Trump, behind the scenes with Iran, there's already a deal to say, okay, we want you to strike these U.S. military bases because the technology that's there, we want you to take that out. We can't destroy it. We can't move it. We can't do anything with this. Just go ahead and destroy this. That technology was connected over to Project Blue Beam, creating holograms to different sound wave systems, controlling humans in the different areas, connected to many, many different things. Whatever it was, Trump, the White Hats military wanted those operations, that technology destroyed. So Iran came in and took out all of that technology. And the technology was placed by the cabal of the Bush family, connected over to Clinton's, then connected over to Obama, the things that they were putting inside these bases, these regions, throughout the Middle East. And Iran was taking out those bases. So it seems like everything was really coordinated. And now people are trying to understand these different images. And there's certain scientists that are saying, well, we know what that technology is that's there. That's very advanced technology that was destroyed. And they're doing close-up. And some of these scientists are saying, well, that technology is connected over to sound wave equipment that's classified. So you can see that different photos, some of them reclassified, it's showing that these bases were empty. It's showing that certain technologies were left wide out in the open to be destroyed. Scientists, different people inside military saying that those that technology was really, really, really sophisticated, and seems like everything was intentional for it to be destroyed. So those are the new stuff that's coming out. Okay, guys, I have a huge, gigantic update coming. For Friday. I'll leave you guys with the little videos from here on out. But you have to see this. This is really happening. The exposure of something really important connected to the House of London, the intelligence, MI6, because those are connected to Mossad, connected to CIA, back to the Knights of Malta, to the 33rd degree Masons, the Rothschilds. This information could not come out. It had always been suppressed, the cover-up of what was happening inside of the UK, underneath the House of London. All of this cover-up, these huge things that's been going on all the way back to the time of, people might have known like Jack the Ripper, back then, who Jack the Ripper was, confusion over that. And the intel indicates that Jack the Ripper behind the scenes, he was from the royal family. And there was a huge cover-up. And that Jack the Ripper, there was clones of Jack the Ripper, say that there was people that was kind of imitating what he was doing, and they were capturing people from all over London. People were disappearing over to the royal houses. People never came back. Servants disappeared. So much people have been disappearing for a long time, and those were connected to satanic rituals. Those things are connected to adrenochrome operations. And that's why for a long time, throughout the world where there was certain kingdoms with the castles, a lot of people warned their families, warned their children, warned people, say, don't go to around this area at nighttime to the royal castle. People disappear. So there's a lot of stories of that. People disappearing around castles, around these different royal families. And this cover-up for a long time connected to Jack the Ripper, the real story, the real intel on that. Police doing a huge cover-up even back then. And it's a huge, huge story. But all of this cover-up going on for a long, long, long time inside of London, inside of UK. It was covered up. It was suppressed. Now, for the first time, the truth is coming out, of the torture, what was happening behind the scenes that is so sick and disturbing, of what they're doing to humans, including putting human meat inside of the food, how dark this is. And this is all being exposed. So you can see that there is a plan to save the world. One of the highest powers in the world, there's a collapse of it happening, whether it's in China, whether it was Putin already, taking out all the CIA, the deep state operations inside of Russia that was connected to large adrenochrome operations back in 1982 and the 1980s. Why Putin absolutely cleaned out Russia. That was really important operations at the beginning of the storm. Pre-storm operations connected over to JFK, understanding what was really happening in the world. As we keep on going through this, there's a lot of disclosure for you guys to learn. Many, many things that people are very unaware of. I'll see you guys on Friday, you guys.
Hey, there's aliens.
We already know life exists in the universe.
It's been over 8 years since we heard about the government UFO program, ATIP. Are we any closer to an official government disclosure regarding non-human intelligence?
They briefed us on some stuff that was frankly terrifying.
The DoD and the intelligence community is very comfortable saying it's unknown.
What are we actually talking about?
I can't share with you the details, ma'am.
There are those who will stop at nothing to hide the truth.
Whistleblowers are safe. I will guarantee that.
I have no job. My career has been tarnished.
People have been killed.
It's likely a balloon. It's likely a balloon. A bird.
It's starting to sound like a broken record.
Exotic materials are the holy grail.
I was on the team that was supposed to receive that.
What I really wanted to do was put some materials in the hands of Arrow.
That came from a UFO.
My bit is stuck. We'll have to try something else.
I mean, that stuff should have liquefied like mercury by now.
I thought it should have. I have no explanation for that.
This is a technology that has long since bled into what we call consciousness.
I'm here to drop off the samplers.
Could non-human intelligence come in many forms?
Our historical timeline has been interrupted by an alien intelligence.
There is a variety of life forms.
From the earliest times, we've had writings of people interacting with non-human intelligence.
People have accepted these things as real.
All of this has to do with the nature of reality itself.
When I say we're in a simulation, there is something that is computing.
We live in something that has a software program.
It's all about consciousness.
Perhaps we've been guided subtly and deliberately.
All the religions have been telling us that there are other beings.
We're in the middle of a revolution right now.
There is a dark side to disclosure, a secret too terrible to be told.
Our future is post-biological. In a sense, they're midwives or undertakers.
The humans served their purpose.
It may not mean surrendering our spirituality.
You can only beat down the truth for so long.
We're at a point where reality doesn't matter.
We have all new questions. It's time to discover what's next. Accidental Truth. Next, a film by Ron James.